Okay, this is Daf Beis and Shabbos Yerushalmi. Daf Beis Shabbos Yerushalmi. Those who are in Bavli are used to days being the first Amid of the Gemara, but this is actually the second Amid of the Gemara because Yerushalmi starts with Aleph. Let's go. So we were talking about in the previous Amid about the Chiyuv of Shabbos of Hoitzi and Achnasa, of going taking things in and taking things out of a Rishus HaYachid to Rishus and Rishus Rabim to Rishus HaYachid. Amar Beis says further, he says a Ani, the Usher, Echad really the Ani and the Usher are one. Umanu, Aisam Cham Mishnayim, but when the Chacham said they're really two, Hachnas V'Haitzi Echad Hey, they're really only one. Umanu Aisam Cham Mishnayim, but the Chacham enumerated them as two. That's a little bit problematic. So now you're trying to think, okay, 1 second. First of all, what is he talking about? Is he talking about, as far as a Lamed Tes Malach is concerned, that they are one? There is only one Haitzah. Haitzah is one of the Lamed Tes Malachas. However, could he say that a person brings in and brings out, that's only going to be Chayiv one? Is that what he's trying to say? Let's see what the Gemara is talking about further. So, to elaborate on Yetzi, you'd see as a Shabbos, taking on Shabbos is Ein Achnasa B'chlal. Isn't that also to go into Shabbos? Wouldn't you say that the converse is true? If you're going out, then also going in? Hamayshim Rishus Roshos. One who takes some Rishus Roshos, Ein Achnasa B'chlal. Isn't also if he goes in? So therefore, going out and going in is basically the same malacha. So therefore, according to this part of the Gemara, it seems like Rabbi Yossi is just trying to say that Haitzah is not literally Haitzah, it's also Achnasa. So obviously that's obvious because we know that Haitzah is not Achnasa, Achnasa is not Haitzah, even though it's all the same malacha. But yes, there would be a separate Chiyuv if a person brought in and a person brought out. So a person brings in and then a person brings out, there'll be two different ones. Where does it come into play? It comes to play of when a person is not really having in mind of doing the malacha. Now the Gemara is going to divert something interesting. It's going to say, what happens if a person has a half a malacha? We don't really get this elsewhere, but what happens if a person has half a malacha? Meaning, what happens if a person is now going to carry half an olive, amount? So if an olive amount is what triggers the chayiv on Shabbos, now the question is going to be, what happens if he carries half an olive amount, half in, half out? Will that combine? And we're going to talk about that as far as also having a sense of consciousness, also going in, going out, and completing malachas. Nishmanos, listen, min hada from here. The Rav Yasa b'shem Rav Yechanan. Let it call Rav Yasa b'shem Rav Yechanan. Hichnes chatzi goigeris. So if one brought half of a dried fig, the haitzi chatzi geris, and then he took out half of a dried fig, so chayiv, he is chayiv. So that is very interesting. So what you're saying is, if you brought out half, not chayiv. If you brought in half, not chayiv. If you brought out and then you brought in the same half, then it combines to be chayiv. What is talking about? This is very mind-blowing to think that two half of averas could combine to make one whole avera. Let's see. The Gemara is going to try to explain this further and really bring out what this is talking about. Minayin, from where do we know? That we're talking about that it's actually considered malacha. Rabbi Shmuel, Bar Nachman, B'Shem Yechanan, so he drives it from this following. It says a pasuk. By Itzav Moshe the Yibru Koil Machanes, so Moshe called out to the Machanol, Lamer, saying, Nimnu hagizbarin v'chelga biyada lachnisai lalishcha. So too, the trustees refrain from accepting them from the people's hands and bringing them in. So the people are going to go out of their house into Rosh Yachid. They're going to go from Rosh Yachid and they're going to give it to the trustees. The trustees were going to accept it from Rosh Hashanah into their Rosh Yachid. That would have been Hachnosa. So we see Atzah and Hachnosa from this pasuk. So it's interesting because we learn out all the Avos Malachas as we learn the Gemara is that they all come from the Mishkan. So this is not necessarily from the Mishkan itself. Malacha Mishkan is a malacha of preparing for the Mishkan. However, since when the preparation of the Mishkan was ending, and now Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, no longer bring me stuff. So bringing, now the pasuk is saying that bringing is part of the malacha. Not only the people, did they write, did they carve, and did they chop, and did they finish, and did they soak, and did they light a fire, and did they harvest, and all these things to get the items of the Mishkan. But once the Kli was finished and had a Makapadish and was finished and ready to be brought to the Mishkan, then they had to go out of the house to bring it, even though that is not part of creating the Mishkan. What Rav Nachman over here is saying is that this pasuk brings it as part of the Mishkan. So even though the malach is finished, you have a cloth. The cloth is finished. All the malachas to make this cloth were done already. However, it has to go from point A to point B. It has to get to the Mishkan. Since it has to get to the Mishkan between Rosh Hashanah into Rabbim back into Yachid, or also from the original where the craft shop is, the Rosh Yachid, go out to Rosh Rabbim and then into Rosh Yachid. So that then became the Malacha. What's interesting though is that why isn't the Malacha to go out and go in? In other words, it should be half the Malacha to go out and half the Malacha to go in, because you couldn't get the items from the Mishkan from point A to point B unless it went out into the Rosh Hashanah and then back into Rosh Hashanah. So really, the pashtus of the pasuk, if you want to learn out, this is malacha. Haitzah really should be a two-part malacha. It should really be going out and going in, but we don't learn it over here. As a matter of fact, now we do not learn over here that it's going out and going in. We learn going out is separate, going in is separate. We also learn possibly you combine a half of going out to a half of going in. Unbelievable. Let's see how the Gemara continues. Reb Chizkiya b'shem Rav Acha Shema Zukula min ha'karekrei. So Reb Chizkiya b'shem Rav Acha, he says, you read from this pasuk, which is interesting because he brings the pasuk from Yirmiyahu, and we know that we did not really paskin from the Navi. However, we could look at the Navi to show minhag, or we could to explain mitzvahs. Because the way they acted in the Navi, we could see how the mitzvahs were either kept or explained, or how minhag was. However, we do not learn out from the Pesukim of Navi. We don't learn out mitzvahs, except for, of course, one exception, and that is the Megillah Esther. There's 3 new mitzvahs in Megillah Esther. So it says in Yirmiyahu, "V'loi tzaytziu masa mibateihem b'yom haShabbos v'chol malacha lo yisasu." So do not take out the burden of the on Shabbos and into the gates of Yerushalim, and do not take out a burden from your house on the Shabbos, and you shall not do any manner of work. So it seems like by them having the minhag or having the practice acceptance of not taking it out, so then therefore we learn, obviously it's a malacha. Why would they say don't do it? So it must be that because they must have learned halacha already from Chumash. So again, we're not learning it from the Pasuk and Navi, but we're learning from the Pasuk and Navi that they kept this as a malacha of Shabbos, and therefore we know it's a malacha of Shabbos. Let's go back to our discussion. Rabbi Yasser b'shem Rechana. Rabbi Yasser b'shem Rechana. Hichnes chatzi gegeres. You brought in a half a dried fig. V'hoitzi chatzi gegeres. And then you brought out a chatzi gegeres. Chayiv is chayiv. Ma demar Rabbi Yechanan, the luck Rabbi Yesi, just like Rabbi Yechanan is like Rabbi Yesi. The Tanya, if we learned in a brisa, Haitzi Chatze Geris, if one took out a half of a dried fig, the Chazar Haitzi the Chatze Geris, and then he returned and took out another half of a dried fig, a different one, the Helamechad in one single period of unawareness, Chayiv, he is Chayiv. Bishnei Elamais, but if it was 2 periods of unawareness, Potter, then he's Potter. So why if it's 1 period? Because 1 period he's really completing it, but if it's 2, he doesn't complete it. Rabbi Yossi says, "Be'elam echad b'rishus echad." If he was 1 period of unawareness and 1 rishus, chayiv, he will be chayiv. Be'elam echad b'shnei rishus. But if it's 1 period of awareness and it goes to 2 different rishuyos, then Oh, Bishnei Alamas, two different unawarenesses, Bershus Echad, or one Bershus, Potter, then he's Potter. So if he goes ahead and takes it from the Rishus Rabbim and brings it into Rishus HaYachid, and then he brings it into Rishus that Rishus HaYachid to a different Rishus Rabbim, or he goes ahead, that's one unawareness, or it was two unawareness. He brought it to Rishus Rabbim and he was unaware. And then he again brought it to Rishus Rabbim and he's unaware. So then he says that he's Potter. So the kashan, the kashan is very difficult, right? Because consider this: if one taking out and then taking out another, taking out and then taking out, right? You take out, you leave it, take out, leave it, right? They're not combined. They're not mitzaref Rabbi Yasi. They're not mitzaref Rabbi Yasi. Loy kosher kenach. So certainly, then we're going in and going out. Also, should not combine according to Rabbi Yasi. So Havima Demar Rabbi Yechanan de Rabbi Yasi. So you must include Rabbi Yechanan who says that do combine, going out, going in, half, do combine. So you must be saying that it's like that it's not like Rabbi Yasi. I'm Rabbi Ler. Rabbi Ler tries to fix this contradiction and so makes everyone to be like Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Yasi. He wants everyone to get along. Lo Yisayv Davar Shnei Leib Sachim Psuchim L'Shtei Paltais. Right? His Rabbi Yisrael's exemption, the one who transfers two half measures in a different domain, is not stated only in two entrances open to two different plazas. Right? We're talking about two different plazas. Like I said before, it's going to be from Shirab to a different Shirab. But when it was open into a single plaza, Rabbi Yasi might, the Rabbi Yasi would be Maida, and he would mention that obviously he's exempt and he's Potter. So the Rabbi Yasi. So Rabbi Yasi, he compares it to the domain compared to other words with respect to liability. If one period of unawareness does not combine, then two periods of awareness also do not combine. If one period do combine, then maybe combine two periods of unawareness. To make half and half, make it into a full measure. So Kamad Rabbi Yasi just as Rabbi Yasi compares that separate domains are periods of unawareness with respect to exemption. So Kach Kamad so too he compares periods of unawareness in respect to liability. Since he took out a measure of equivalent to a dried fig through the first entrance, or Geras Pesach Zeh, and the equivalent of a dried fig through the other entrance, Belamachas and one awareness, Shema Ina Chayv time. You say they don't combine, of course they combine. So again, he took half and he brought it down to this one, and half and brought it to this one, so they combined half and brought it in. So of course they combined because all period of one unawareness. So the period of all one awareness, at least they're combined to be a malach, and at least in the period of you have to bring a chatos. Would he have to obviously go to Chai Misa get karas? Probably not, because they're only hamalachos. Hamalachos probably not combined to do karas to Chai Misa. However, we're talking about a chatos, so it would be enough to trigger to have to be a chatos. Amar Rav Yudin. Rav Yudin said, Rabbi Yasi Madam Yerushalmi Achilas Persayim. Rabbi Yasi compares the case of transferring the domain to two periods of the time when a person needs to eat a loaf. So Kedei Achilas Pras, right? So She'im if one ate half an olive's volume in the period of needs of achilas pras, and then again he waits another achilas pras, then he goes ahead and eats the second half in that time period. Shema Eini Potter. If it's chaylev, remember this is chaylev. The chaylev you cannot eat, and it has to be inside of an olive. So if it's half an olive's worth of chaylev. When it takes Leichil's pras, which is a few minutes, and then he takes the other half, and then that takes another few minutes. Shama Eni Potter. So you're going to say that he's not going to be Potter? Of course, he's going to be Potter. So Achol Kama Zaysen Bekama Persayim Be'elamachad. If one ate several olives worth in several Persayim in a single period of unawareness, Eni Chayev Elachas, you only will be Chayev ones. Then they would combine because all one period of unawareness. Rabbanan, the Kseirin Amrin, Rabbanan from Caesarea. Caesarea was a port city along the Mediterranean Sea on the western part of Eretz Yisrael. It was obviously built by Herod, and it was used by the Romans. It was basically a Roman city until obviously the times of the Churban, when the Jews took over the entire Israel, and then after the Churban, it was again once a big Roman city, but then the Rabbanan was sitting over there. So the Rabbanan, the Kasari and the Rabbanan of Kasari would say, Ad diatum the midvai la l'chavlavim. Before you compare the case of the two domains in regard to respect eating chaylev, so domain is the Shabbos. First compare it to Shabbos. Why are you going ahead and trying to compare it to taking out a half an olive to carrying, going in, going out, to eating half an olive of chaylev? First compare it to a case of Shabbos. What's the case of Shabbos? If one did a single thread, you don't have to do two stitches in order to be chayiv. So did one stitch on this beged, and then he did one stitch on that beged. Shema in particular to say that he's not pater. Of course, he'll be chayiv v'chatas, because in one awareness he did two chudim. It was one on one beged, one on one beged. With bottom line, he did two mice. He did two mices to combine to be a malacha. If one wove several threads into several garments in a single period of unawareness, he's only chayiv one. So therefore, we don't have to learn that from Caleb. We can learn from Shabbos itself. We see that they combine. Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yossi says in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Hamaitzi einei chayev ad sheyinicha. One does not take out an object in Shabbos from a domain. He's not liable until he places it down in the second domain. Rav Yaakov, so he has to have that also. He can't just take it out and bring it in, because take it out and bring it in, so long as he's not put it down, he's not finished the malacha. This is very important. So no, taking it out and putting it down is part of the malacha. We learn from the Mishnah. The Mishnah says the one from the outside reached in and then placed it, or picked up from the inside and reached it outside. It's a placing and putting, and along with transferring the shuyas. But she says until he put it down, he's going to finish the malacha. So he can walk in and out all day long. It's so long as a period of unawareness, he's not going to be chayiv. Rabbi Yaakov Barach b'Shem Yerushalmi. Rabbi Yaakov says b'Shem Yerushalmi, ad sheyital ve'enai sheiniach, and then he lifts it until he places it down. There, Boyer analyzes this. Ad sheyital ad v'na lahaniach, until he lifts until he has intention to place down. Not olecha v'nimlach lahaniach. If one lifted food to eat it, then he reconsidered and he put it down, la habi chayiv, then he would not be liable. So it has to be an intention to lift it and put it down. So according to this, if a person, even if he goes in and out all day long, but he never puts it down, never picks it up again, so it doesn't make a difference whether it was all one period of unawareness, other periods of unawareness. If he just kept going from rishus to rishus, but it was never actually put down or picked up, and then it kept returning to the same rishus, then he wouldn't be chayiv. Mada am Rabbi Yechanan delak Rabbi Yossi. That was Rabbi Yechanan and said Rabbi Yossi. So the time we learned in the brisa. Haitzi chatzei geretz v'hanicha. Now we explain exactly what it is. He took out half and he put it. And he put it there. And he returned, and they took out another half of dried figs. If he put it within the 4 amos of the first one, that's sitting over there. So he's chayiv. If not potter, then he potter. Rabbi Yossi says, if he even walked into that measure, then he passed by the 4 amos, then potter, then he'd be potter. So the bottom line is, now we know what we're talking about. If he takes a half of a olive's worth, half a fig's worth, and he goes out from between the shuyas, and he has to put it down. Then he takes the second one and he puts it down with an arbamas. That combines to be a malacha. But if he puts it somewhere else, or if it doesn't even pass by, then according to everybody, it will not be considered completing a malacha. Rabbi Yossi avad hamalche kaminiach. Rabbi Yossi considers one who walks just like one he places, and therefore we're just walking by within 4 amos of the first one. That will be enough. So Kamad Rabbi Yossi avad hamalach kaminiach l'chiyuv. Just like Rabbi Yossi says the one who walks is sort of like he puts it down. Kachu avid hamalech kaminiach l'pater. So too he considers one who walks like one who places it down regarding Chat's exemption, and so long as he doesn't go to the same rishus, or so long as it doesn't go Abrahamas in the same rishus of the person, even the same rishus, but he goes to Abrahamas, or definitely goes to a different rishus, that would be considered a complete putting down somewhere else, and therefore be potter. And therefore, he won't be chayiv, and they won't combine. They only combine if he does it, even in a period of unawareness of that it's Shabbos, but his intention to put it down or intention to place it up, that will be enough. You have to have intention to put it down, even if he doesn't realize that it's Shabbos. Obviously, it's not that he's got unawareness of intention to put it down. The unawareness isn't that it's Shabbos. He does not realize that it's Shabbos. He's doing a malacha, and he does not know it's malacha. Still, then they would combine. But if it was completely different rishuyas, or if it was completely different, 2 different lapses of judgment, and they weren't even near each other, then it would not combine.